For a movie about epic fights, Marvel's combat is surprisingly boring. Let me explain 3 things that I believe would make them more enjoyable. First of all, some Avengers need to be better than others. The first movie's appeal was in seeing them squaring off against each other. Who would win between Iron Man and Thor, Hulk and Thor, and so on. But it quickly became apparent that they didn't want for one to win over the other. Each fight ended rather inconclusively, sort of in a way so that fans of either hero could argue that there's one. I guess what I don't like about this approach is that I feel no different if Iron Man steps into a fight than I do if it's the Hulk or Thor. I know they're going to be okay, unless it's made obvious before the fight that they're not going to win. To Marvel's credit, they've thrown a number of second-tier Avengers into the fray. How do we know they're second tier? Because they haven't had movies made about them, but also because their role is to perform some cool stunts that don't really matter that much, because we know it will be left to one of the main Avengers to do the stuff that really matters. What I really want to see is a proper hierarchy of Avengers. If we know that one is weaker than another, then it raises the stakes whenever they're on screen, because you know that there's somebody else who's better for the task. Which is why I love Captain America. He's not good enough to defeat enemies, he simply holds them off until a better Avenger can come along and finish the job. He does this in the first Avengers film against Loki, until Iron Man comes along. In the second Avengers movie, he's tossed about by Ultron as nothing more than a distraction, and is only able to hold his ground with aid from several other people. He goes above and beyond in the third movie, blocking Thanos for a few seconds. In the first Avengers movie, while other Avengers are mowing down dozens of enemies like it's nothing, Captain America struggles to fight a few at once. Captain America is rubbish! And that's why I like him, because he doesn't seem invincible. So there's a degree of risk when he's fighting that you don't get from, say, Thor. There was great potential from that scene in Captain America 3 where everybody fought each other, but once again, the only real victory was when the red guy accidentally hurt the flying dude. That's right, a fight is considered a failure if they hurt someone else. That's the state Marvel movies are in. Which brings me on to point 2. Fights mean nothing. Escalation. Each movie wants to outdo what the one before it did. They punch harder, kick harder, fall further, and get blown up more. And yet, none of this hurts them. The first 90% of the fight is there for show. It's only with the final blow of the fight, when suddenly they'll sustain that kind of damage that you'd expect them to sustain from such an attack. I understand this. We want to be entertained and love watching big explodey fights. But how can I care about people who don't seem to obey the laws of physics unless the plot decides it's time to move on? Why does Iron Man have 100 different rockets in his suit when they all do the same thing anyway? And I'm left thinking, what does hurt these people? Thor got shot with the power of a star. How is anyone supposed to hurt him if he can withstand that? It confuses me when the final punch suddenly does real damage, even though it doesn't seem any more painful than any of the other things that they received up to that point. I'm not saying that everybody in this movie should be normal people with normal abilities. I'm fine with superhuman feats, provided they're consistently applied. I'm fine with WATCHMEN, a movie with an invincible teleporting insta-jibbing mega genius blue man who's never nude. But with Thor, for instance, if someone's a god, you don't make him mortal just because it's convenient to do so. I dislike this because it devalues what they do. I stop thinking, oh no, there's so much peril, when I know that every Avenger has a raging Deus Ex Machina stuffed down their pants to get them out of tight corners. And by doing this enough, it then confuses me when they don't have a solution to something. I'm fine with Thor doing what he did at the end of Avengers 3. I just dislike how inept he was before that point. I don't like how the red dude was made to seem amazing, only to be absolutely rubbish in the latest movie for no apparent reason. I don't like how super fast guy was slow enough to think that becoming a meat shield was his best option. It should be obvious from the movie as to how Doctor Strange, the guy who almost died in a car crash, can now hit a wall hard enough to leave a dent, plummet 50 feet, and still be okay. I hate to be a killjoy. I'm fine with magic being the answer if it makes sense in that situation. If his cape visibly slowed or protected him, yes, that's fine. But it didn't, did it? Yes, I know the answer will be in the comics somewhere, but I refuse to flick through 1,000 comic books for the answer. It's unreasonable to be expected to do that. If something's important enough to save a life in a movie, I expect the reason to be apparent from what's already been shown in that movie. Movie heroes can't rely on comics as plot armor. And lastly, lack of variety. Avengers are pretty much reskinned Tekken characters. Sure, one fires red lasers, another fires yellow, and another punches. But they all serve the same purpose? Take Spider-Man for instance. He gets launched into space. Not the ideal place for a Spider-Man to be. But don't worry, Iron Man has made a Spider-Man suit for this situation, and suddenly Spider-Man can breathe in space again. The ship is about to crash. Don't worry, all the Avengers can activate their absorb impact damage powers and survive. Oh no, does the Hulk have to fight a flying creature? Don't worry, there's a skyscraper just over there that he can climb up and launch himself off. Avengers have no weaknesses. Yes, they work together, but they don't exactly have to, do they? They never think, why, I sure wish Hulk was here with his strength to smash through this thing, because they could just get Thor to do it with his hammer, or Iron Man with whatever gadget he has up his sleeve, or whatever. In fact, the only variation I can see between them is how serious they are. Each fight pairs a serious guy with a jokey one for comedic effect. Oh wait, I have another thing I've just thought of. Number 4. No lasting consequences. Every trailer teases of death, and yet nothing much happens. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I've now been fooled a fair few times. I don't expect change anymore. And yet the movies still managed to find ways of disappointing me. I liked that Thor lost an eye. That shows at least some kind of lasting damage. Until, in the next movie, I kid you not, this raccoon gives him a spare eye that he found in his pocket. Guy paralysed? Don't worry, robotic suit will make him all better. I think the most character development we've seen so far is from Captain America's beard. But with all that said, I don't hate these movies. The fact I keep going back to watch more shows that. They're entertaining. I just find it infuriating that these things I've covered constantly disappoint me about them, and I'm confused as to why more people don't complain. Clearly, I don't expect Marvel to change. Their movie formula is a goldmine. They can churn out as many movies as they like and still be praised and worshipped. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And while it remains the internet's darling, I feel obliged to watch them, or else risk missing out on all the dank memes they generate. But I've got to say, I did like Thanos. I did kind of wonder why nobody sat down and discussed his plan with him. Why half? Wouldn't that just delay the same problems for a few years? I think he'd have listened and had some sort of decent response to it as well. Seemed like a pretty switched on kind of guy. Not the sort to make snap decisions. But in a way I'm pleased this didn't happen, because the amount of death and destruction he left in his wake almost makes up for the past dozen Marvel movies. It makes sense. There were too many heroes in the latest film for any to have enough screen time. Battles felt rushed, moves from each person shoehorned in just to keep fans from being disappointed. At one point I even wondered if it was done intentionally to leave more people for him to kill in this one. And not only that, he killed off the people with the most potential for future movies. That's great. Unless it's all just a trick. In which case, shame on me. Again.